Hello, my name is Thane and I like to experiment with all kinds of AI technologies. There has been a huge update from Midjourney as the version 6 is now in alpha as of today. It means that it is available, but it's not the default style when you prompt. But you can prompt it if you either select it in the settings or put --V6 somewhere in your prompt. Before we get to looking at the newest stuff, I thought I would take a look at how far Midjourney has come in the short time it has been in existence. And I tried to think of things to look at that historically have been problematic to generate. You can actually prompt all the older versions of Midjourney still if you want to, and that's what I have done today. Just put --V followed by the version number in your prompt. The first version of Midjourney looked like this and it was released in February of 2022. It's difficult to grasp that it hasn't even been 2 years and we have seen such progress. One can only imagine where do we go from here. The version 2 looked like this. It was released on April 12, 2022. I was totally oblivious to its existence at that time and I have actually never prompted the first 2 versions before. Version 3 is the one that I discovered for myself and fell in love with. It was released on July 25, 2022. And I prompted Midjourney for the first time on the 22nd of August in 2022. This was actually the image that I prompted. I threw in a bunch of random words and got this as the result. It really felt like magic to me, and to this day, it still amazes me how this is possible and what the possibilities are in the future. And no, this has never been about copying someone's artwork. In my opinion, it is that a single human can achieve so much more than before. I mean, you can create entire movies or games at one point, or something else that hasn't even been thought of before. In my opinion, that is the end goal, and we have barely just started going. But going back to the beginning, version 4 was released on the 5th of November in 2022. This was my first experience with a rating party. And the jump from version 3 to version 4 seemed just incredible. Version 5 came on 15th of March 2023, and it is the current version. It brought in so much improvement when it came to realism. But it had a tendency to generate a lot of nonsense text if it wasn't sure what to do with a prompt. So that's how we proceeded to version 5.1 on the 3rd of May in 2023. It seemed to default to surrealism. And the current version 5.2 was released on 22nd of June in 2023. That's where we are currently at. It looks also really surreal by default, and although surrealism is one of my favorite art styles, I didn't particularly like the default style. But now we have landed at version 6. It is still in alpha, so things are probably going to change and fast. I haven't really had the chance to test it out properly yet myself, but I think it looks great. I will be making another detailed video soon about just version 6 and its features. Those were briefly the biggest versions so far in Midjourney. There are actually 19 legacy models that you can still use, and I didn't bring out all of them in this video. If you really want to, you can check out Midjourney's documentation on this and switch between all of the different models with these parameters. There might actually be a few that are missing from the list, but I think there aren't a lot of people who still use the older models. But now, let's look at some different prompts. I wanted to start out with landscapes, which have been a staple of my tests and experimentations in the past. The version 1 landscapes do look really coherent already. I think there is an obvious difference between the first 3 versions and version 4. These images are all version 5, but just different minor versions. I included the raw style of the latest version, and I clearly prefer those above all the other minor versions. The 5.1 and 5.2 went just so surreal that even a simple landscape looks something really impossible and unnatural. Depicting people has evolved a lot. so I went with portrait, which I have used a lot in my tests before as well. Version 1 started with some elongated necks and not really looking like people. Again, I noticed that the first 3 versions are really similar in appearance, and version 4 has done an enormous jump towards people actually looking like people. Version 5.0 had a really odd tendency to generate some well-known people by accident, without even prompting for them specifically. The raw style of the current 5.2 model is looking really good. Sometimes it's pretty hard to tell that these are not real people. Next up is human hands. This has been really difficult for all AI image generators to achieve, and we still probably don't get perfect hands. So even though we have progressed from weird fleshy blobs to something resembling actual human hands, there is still some ways to go. Version 5 is way better at hands than all the previous versions, but there's still some weirdness going on from time to time. Especially 6 fingers and lots of wrinkles, it would seem. Some of them look close though, a lot better than the fleshy blobs where fingers had their own finger-looking appendages. From what I have heard and observed, mermaids are something that Midjourney still struggles with. And it does seem to be so. First 3 versions look terrible, but there is an attempt though. Version 4 looks a lot prettier, but those are just pretty ladies underwater. Version 5 didn't get there either. Still just pretty ladies underwater, or strange attempts at a mermaid's tail. We shall see if version 6 will be an improvement on this. And we are able to see it right away. Well, version 6 was not supposed to be in this video originally as it was not out yet, so this is a late addition to the video. Overall, the style looks to be either really painterly or very photorealistic. No more surrealistic landscapes, which I really like. Portraits look good, no big jump there, because they have been quite good for a while now. Hands are still not quite there yet. There are still some strange things appearing here and there. But mermaids actually have tails now. The proportions look a little strange on these images, but overall better than before. I think that Midjourney has been generating dogs pretty well since version 4. It's funny to see the progression from version 1 and then jumping to version 4. I can't see there being such a huge jump from version 5 to version 6 based on visual alone, but that remains to be seen. Version 5.0 did default to photorealistic style quite often. But the dogs look pretty good. 5.1 and 5.2 look kind of strange with the artistic interpretations. I guess it really depends on what you want to do. The default style just isn't for everyone all of the time. Bicycle is another thing that is reported to be difficult to generate by AI image generators. And the first 3 versions clearly show that although we get a shape that is somewhat reminiscent of a bicycle, it's not quite that. Version 4 looks way better, but if you look at them closely, there's still some stuff that isn't supposed to look like that. On the surface, version 5 looks better, but there are still a few oddities even in the 5.2 version. Especially the images where the people are riding on the handlebars instead of the saddle. Also, it's strange that we only get a representation of a city bike in all of the images, and not one mountain bike. This one is fireworks display. I think that this has had some really solid performance since the beginning. Even the version 1 looks kind of beautiful like a painting. It seems to be getting more complex with each new major version. Version 5 has the most elaborate fireworks displays. I really enjoy these. They look beautiful with all versions in my opinion. Back to some fantasy themes. Dragons have been reported to require some improvement. Versions 1 to 3 again look pretty similar to each other, and yet again, version 4 seems to bring some improvement. Surprisingly, version 5 doesn't have a really big jump there. We seem to mostly get the head of a dragon in most of the images. They look pretty fierce, so I think that the problem may lie in the depiction of the dragon's body. That may require some additional prompting to specify that we want to see an entire dragon, but for now, let's settle with this. And now a look at version 6 again. Is it just me, or are the color tones really skewed towards brown and orange? I do like the images, the lighting is fabulous, but there seems to be a perpetual autumn going on there. Dragons still don't seem to have bodies depicted, but it may again be that we need to specifically prompt for that, especially in version 6. Next thing I wanted to try out was water ripples. They seem almost there since the beginning, but not exactly. Version 4 seems to do some too geometric shapes for that, so it's not that realistic. But version 5 briefly seems to do it correctly, at least the photorealism focused models do. 5.1 and 5.2 styles tend to veer away from the photorealism, so the ripples look kind of strange and in my opinion not what they're supposed to be. But they do produce some interesting looking patterns or visuals. Human emotion and teeth is another thing that Midjourney has struggled to do correctly at first. So I combined them both with the prompt smile. For this one, we actually see a progression from really bad and strange to something actually reminding a smile. Version 4 wasn't quite there yet, still even though it had a lot of improvement over the previous versions, but the amount of teeth was too much. So I do feel like version 5 has improved a lot, and some of the images do really convey a smiling person very well in my opinion. Especially the 5.2 RAW version. Although there is just one person smiling in the grid I generated, the one person looks really realistic and happy with the correct amount of teeth. For some reason, 5.1 is really creepy with these smiles. Another one I know people have been having issues with is a centaur. And by the looks of it, first versions do some really weird constructs there. Version 4 is better, but not quite there. We get strange combinations with horse heads that are not supposed to be there at all. And version 5 still doesn't seem to get it right. Most of the time, we see a guy on a horse. If we look closely, maybe there could be actually one centaur produced by the latest RAW version, but with 5 legs. So lots of improvement still to go there. I do like architecture a lot, so the prompt has been featured in my videos quite often. The earlier versions don't look that bad, they're actually house-shaped. Version 4 did some awesome architecture, but it was possibly too elaborate and impossible at times. Version 5 continued that trend and went a little too surrealistic with it. The photorealism-focused styles 5.0 and 5.2 RAW do seem to be depicting architecture quite accurately. And 5.2 RAW even has some interesting shapes there that could be useful for an architect brainstorming for ideas. We again see a variation between painterly style and really realistic, almost like a photograph. That's especially so with water ripples that look really accurate in my opinion. The smiles look really happy and the teeth don't look weird anymore at all. There could be more happiness in the eyes though, in the case of this grid. But I guess one doesn't always have to be happy to smile. There seems to be one centaur in this grid that is what it's supposed to be, so there might be only a slight improvement in the centaur department. Let's look at how well Midjourney can draw. The colors are there, and in the earlier versions, it would look like Midjourney draws some really strange shapes. Version 4 is again a really big jump there with some really pretty drawings. But even the person drawing is colored like the drawing. Version 5 seems to be better at separating the drawing and the person drawing. Although the hand holding a pencil has things to improve. So it's good to show that as well. Just a hand or just a drawing or just a pencil looks fine probably. But a person drawing while holding a pencil in their hand is still kind of difficult for Midjourney to achieve. This is lace. I went with this to see how the intricate details have improved over time. And there does seem to be an obvious difference in the details from version 1 to version 4. Version 5 also has a lot of details across all iterations, no big changes there actually. I guess wedding dresses are the place with the most occurrences of lace. One would think there would be other places as well, but that seems to be very prevalent. We had bicycle, but we didn't look at cars yet, so here you go. The first 3 versions look almost like a car, but barely. Version 4 has a noticeably big jump, but I have always wondered why the non-photorealistic cars look like classic cars. Version 5 does seem to have some sports cars in the mix there. But oddly, there is actually not just a regular car in any of the grids I got. They're all either sports cars with the photorealistic models 5.0 and 5.2, raw and classic cars with the more artsy models 5.1 and 5.2. I wonder why it's like that. And we shall finish this video with a sneak peek at the future with Futuristic City. Surprisingly, the first 3 versions look pretty good. And the version 4 is just a slight improvement in detail. Version 5 brings in lots and lots of details. It is kind of hard to tell the difference between the minor models. I have noticed that the normally photorealistic styles 5.0 and 5.2 RAW tend to produce similar images to the regular models when the topic is something that doesn't actually exist, like fantasy or sci-fi things that don't have an equivalent in reality. And now a look at version 6 again. Drawings look good, although it's strange that all the images in this grid are women looking up in a weird pose. Lace has some astonishing detail, and possibly not all of it is on a wedding dress. Cars are still a bit vintage, but they have interesting angles. I am not that impressed by the Futuristic City images, but I guess that's just a matter of taste, and the vision in my head is probably looking for something different when trying to picture this. Alright, that was an overview of how far Midjourney has come in the short time of its existence, and possibly give you hints of what improvements await us in the future. You may notice that I was just about done making this video when version 6 came out, so there may be some odd references here or there to things that are no longer so, but I hope you don't mind. Consider joining me in discovering what the future holds by subscribing to my channel. Let me know what you think about this progression and where we are headed. And I also appreciate your likes too. Thank you so much for watching, and let's continue prompting.